In a relationship, when is honesty not the best policy? How do you balance what you want versus what you need? And is there something you need to say to your spouse but can't find the right way to say it? If so, then you're in the right place. This is the Lunch with Sandy podcast. With nearly 20 years of marriage under their belts, Terrence and Sandy Jackson discuss a range of topics, provide valuable insights on relationships, and talk about the conversations married couples need to have. So what does lunch have to do with all of this? Well, it's a metaphor for how these conversations originally started. Speaking of conversations, let's get one going. Here's your hosts, Terrence and Sandy.
Hello and welcome to the Lunch with Sandy podcast. I'm Terrence.
And I'm Sandy.
And as usual, we are having the conversations that married couples need to have. So Sandy, every episode we start off with a particular format. We do the little introduction. I give a spotlight of the week. And in between that introduction and the spotlight of the week, we have a little conversation about how you're doing for the week. So let's jump right into the how you're doing since it's been a little bit.
Feeling all right.
You're feeling all right. That's the best you got?
Relaxed.
Yes, very relaxed. And speaking of relaxed, that is a great segue into the spotlight for this week. Because the spotlight for this week is the Oxygen Lifestyle Hotel in Rimini, Italy. And it is because of the overwhelming sense of calmness, understanding, and how do you say welcomeness that they displayed while we were there on vacation.
Yes, and I like that it was across the street from the beach.
Well, being across the street from the beach didn't matter to me. What
mattered to me.
What was really special was the fact that you can do all you needed to do right in that one little area. I was particularly happy with the half board with the food, the breakfast and the dinner, and how accommodating that they were.
And the food was good.
The food was good. Listen.
It's not like half board and you're just dealing with like crappy food or basic fried food. They went out.
No, listen,
there was a spread.
There was a spread, and not only was there a spread, they accommodated me for every meal with my allergies.
Yep.
And not only was, the food great. We talk about the food, but the dessert.
Oh yeah, those are phenomenal too.
Listen, the best apple juice I've ever had in my entire life. Now, they did switch it up and started watering down after the first day, but that was the best apple juice I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah, that was good.
And the prosciutto was so clean, so fresh.
Yeah.
That was the best I ever had also.
It's funny because here in the States, when you buy Italian presunto, I'll go with the Portuguese word. It's like very salty. A lot of times there's like pepper, and it just does not taste like what we had over there in Italy. It was just completely different. The salami tasted incredibly clean, like you said, so much better than the salami here. It was just really good. Even the
bread. Listen, those chocolate-filled, honey-filled, vanilla-filled croissants.
Yeah, they were
My
good.
Goodness, they were phenomenal.
And a country that has Nutella everywhere is all right with me.
Listen, you know what? One of the most appreciative things was, we arrived on Monday. The airline had a snafu with our luggage.
Yes.
We didn't have our luggage. We didn't get our luggage until Thursday. But again, being that they were, the fourth day we were there, being that there were shops there, and the people, when you go to a foreign country and it's not your native tongue, it's not the language that you actually speak. Sometimes you hesitate because you think that the people may not be as friendly or as welcoming because you're a foreigner. I will say this, in that town, particularly in those shops, those people were very welcoming and understanding. And when they found out that we hadn't had our luggage, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was on the fourth day, later on in the afternoon, or maybe it was the fifth day. It was either Thursday or Friday. We're walking down, and the shop owner, he asked me in Italian if whether or not we had gotten our bags. And I was like, yes. Yeah. So, they remembered, and it was on his mind as we were walking by, and he asked that question. So,
hey, when you go shopping and they give you an espresso while you're shopping.
Listen. It's the culture is
customer service.
Listen,
right
the culture is different over there. And I was surprised by that. It was a very welcome surprise. So yeah, the Oxygen Lifestyle Hotel,
yes,
in Italy. That is my spotlight of the week. Now, obviously, we were on vacation. We were over in Europe, and time flows a little different over there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's a great segue because the last week we were there, I'm not going to get into any names, but from a time perspective, we were always waiting on one particular realm. And so the topic that I want to discuss today has to do with time. And so my question to you is, do you think that you have a problem with being on time?
Me? Absolutely.
I'm glad you said absolutely. So now let me broaden that question. Let me broaden that question for you because,
and I can explain as well.
Well, we'll get into that explanation. Do you think that there's a difference in the concept of being on time between a husband and wife, or men and women, however you want to phrase that in general, in a relationship?
Oh, again, definitely. I always say you're always early, I'm always late. So together we make it on time.
You know what? It's funny you say that because sometimes I feel that you have a condition. And you know what the condition I phrased it?
What's that?
Time blindness.
No, that's not it. I don't know what the name of my condition is. We'll figure it. We can find a name for it. But I try to fit in too many things into the time that I have. So I do try to work backwards. Like, okay, we got to be out of the house at 1:00. Hence, I got to be in the shower by this time, that time, and I start working backwards to fill up my day with what I can get done and then start that clock into like getting ready. But the problem is things always end up taking longer.
Well, what you said made sense. And when I say time blindness, that doesn't mean you have no concept of time.
Okay.
What it means is, you have this approach to how you get things done. You start backwards. But what you don't account for is all the things that distract you between the things that you're trying to accomplish. And those things make you blind to the amount of time that it's taking you to deal with those. Because you'll say, okay, well, I got to be somewhere in an hour. So it's going to take me 15 minutes to do this. But as you start to do that thing, within those 15 minutes, your eye gets caught by something else. And then you're distracted for 5 minutes. And so now your 15 minutes is down to 10 minutes, but you still take 15 minutes to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so then within that 45 minutes that you have remaining, you'll allot for time to accomplish things in there, but more things come up. And that's where the time blindness comes in. It's not with the stuff that you plan on doing. Mm-hmm. It's with the stuff that you don't plan on doing that you get distracted by.
True, because I'll be like, okay, I got 5 minutes before I need to get in the shower and get ready. Let me go, I don't know, clean the kitchen counters.
You know what I call that?
And then I had an extra 5 minutes, and now I'm probably behind 5 minutes. And so the domino effect starts.
Here's what I see with you all the time. It is a case of organized disorganization. And what I mean by that is you do try to organize what it is you need to accomplish, but you get distracted very easily.
Yeah.
And then in those moments, you're disorganized because you didn't organize or account for those things that always seem to pop up.
Yeah.
And then it just throws your entire organization schedule off.
Yeah. And then just things you're right. Because like Ayla will be like, instead of just combing her hair, she'll be like, can you braid it for me?
Yeah.
So now, like, the 15 minutes that her hair normally takes is now taking, 25. And now
Yeah.
I've lost 10 minutes.
Well, and I will say this. See, I'm going to give you some credit because when you talk about disorganization, for some people, it's like, okay, well, they're not organized, so like they can't find their keys, or they don't know where their shoes are, or whatever the case may be. You're not disorganized in that sense, and that's why I say it's organized disorganization. It's those things that come up, right? And I think with you, it's the impulsivity of what's between those slots. In other words, if you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to do Ayla's hair, it's going to take me 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
You remember that, there was something else you were supposed to do yesterday. I'm going to take care of that right now because Ayla's going to get the comb and the brush. And it just starts this pattern and this trail where it just goes on and on and on and on.
No, you're right. Because, or I'll be doing Ayla's hair and she's running out of whatever product. Oh, let me go on the Target app and, put that in my cart. And then while I'm in the Target app, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's 5 other things. Let me get that prepped so I don't forget later in the week. You're right. I do get very distracted. I guess I should buffer in distraction time.
I'm going to tell you. So there are techniques that you actually should be using. What you should be doing is, and I know you'll never do this. So I was reading an article and I saw this article. It was either yesterday. No, it probably wasn't yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday. I'm still trying to get back to U.S. time. But it was basically talking about how in Tokyo, Japan, when it comes to being on time, they're like the number one country in the world. They're very regimented when it comes to that stuff. However, it was a survey. They did a survey, and it turns out that the women are more on time than the men. Now, the difference is when they talk about on time, they're talking about, when they're late, they're talking about seconds. They're not talking about, minutes and things. I mean, it literally is seconds. But one of the techniques that they use is they set their watch and clocks ahead 2 minutes. Mm. Now,
but see, I
it's
do
different.
That, and then I know that it's ahead.
Well, see,
and then
now listen,
it just cancels
that technique.
I know, so that technique doesn't work. I've tried. It doesn't work.
Well, see, that's because you're not focusing on the actual time on the watch. You can't defeat yourself by saying, hey, listen, I'm going to set my watch 5 minutes ahead, but I know it's 5 minutes ahead, so I know I got an extra 5 minutes, and this is going to take me 30 minutes, so I really got 35. Then that defeats the point. I need to just
start setting timers for myself.
There you go.
You can't take any more than 10 minutes to do this.
I know what has to happen. I got to use a technique to say, when we're leaving, we got to be there. So here's one of the techniques that it doesn't work for them, but the TSCC, they use this technique. They'll say, okay, well, the ride is at 8:30. And
it's really 8:45?
No. It's really 9. They plan on 9, which throws me. Which is, so you can't be doing that. You can't be waiting around for people for a half hour. But anyway, that's the technique that they actually use. But again, the problem with that is now you have all these people who are expecting to, move at 8:30, and then now they got to wait around for.
On time.
Yeah. Yes.
We can just coin it that I'm on European time because
You say you're on Joel time.
He has no need to really move fast.
Yeah, and we're not going. So. Yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned that, but anyway.
But no, I feel like there it's slower pace, and I think obviously that's my problem. I just try to, like I said, just do too much. I run the rat race all the time, just jamming in whatever I can jam in rather than just taking my time. I feel like I'm a little jealous of the people who, although I'm trying to get better at this, who just sit there, have their coffee in the morning, whatever it is, and they're not running around like a chicken with its head cut off, because that's more of my style.
Well, you can do that when you're not on a schedule.
I must admit.
Or when you account for that in your schedule. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things that I do appreciate is, when you talk about the social aspect of some of the things that they do overseas, that block is accounted for. So it's blocked out, right? So whatever you need to get done between this hour and this hour, or these hours, you got to get it done. But these other hours, hey, that's up for grabs. See, there's no real schedule there, so you can take your time. So
I must admit, for appointments, I'm always on time. It's just everything else.
And you know what the hard part of that is? Everything else most of the time involves me. So I'm going to give you some techniques that you can use. I know you're not going to use them, but I know there is one that always works because it's based on me. Some techniques that you should probably use.
You start rushing me?
No. No, I'm not going to name the technique till I get to it on my list.
Okay.
You mentioned the first one. The first one is use a timer. You got to start using with technology today, we have all these timers. They're everywhere and people don't use them.
Well, we used to do it with the kids too. Like, all right, you got 20 minutes to do whatever it is that we needed them to do.
Yep. And so when we use the timer, what we got to make sure is once the timer goes off for you, that's it. You got to stop. So if you utilize some of that time to do something else, you lose out. So if your hair ain't done, you got to walk out of the house with your hair half done. You got to move on to the other thing. You got to using the timer. All right. The other technique is developing a routine. With a routine, it's consistent. And so when you have that consistency,
I have a decent routine.
Here's the thing. Your routine's not decent enough that each day it's taking you the same amount to do the same number of things because that impulsivity comes in. Your routine has to be regimented so you keep the same routine so you know how long it's going to take you, so you know how much time you have. Your challenge is the disorganization outside of the organization, which that is impulsivity. If you stick to the routine, it takes some of that impulsiveness out, which then allows you to stay on track.
Okay.
And then, yes, there's three more. One, and you do some of these things. Prepare things the night before. Do your hair the night before. Put it in a bag. Put it in a bag when you get up in the morning. Shake it out and run with it. Not your hair, but some of the things that can be done the night before. And we're not talking about I'm not talking about you getting ready for work and things like that. I'm talking about we got places to go. Like when we just got back from vacation, but before going on vacation, we made sure everything was packed up the night before, try to make sure everything was in there. So when it was time to go, there was nothing that was going to be left and things like that. And actually, we did a pretty good job. You did a pretty good job on the way there and on the way back from a packing perspective and making sure that when it was time to go, everything. See, I'm giving you your props. Everything was ready to go. Here's I mentioned this one earlier. This is almost like the TSCC technique. Leave earlier. That's one of the things where it's not just leaving earlier. It's saying whatever we have to do is earlier.
Yeah.
So you're ready earlier. And in that way, it kind of resolves that issue. But the one that works the most, and it's reliant completely on me, and people say, always, what is this? AIS. The AIS technique is fail proof. And for those who don't know, AIS stands for ass in seat. If we set the time and we set it by AIS terms, if you're not in the car, if your butt's not in the seat at that time, you get left. And if you get left, you learn a lesson. And then you understand, hey, listen, when I'm not on time, it affects everyone else. So I got to practice these techniques or else I'll be left here. and I'm not going to make it to where I need to be.
No, luckily I have my own car. But
That's true. But if you drive in your own car, then you can't sleep. And we know how much you like sleeping in the car.
I do. It's so relaxing. It's just that constant movement.
Yeah.
It just cradles me to sleep.
So those are some techniques. Which of those techniques do you think that is going to best help you look at the temporal time
Continuum.
imbalance that we have here to make sure that you stay on track?
I don't know. Well, just like anything else, right? It has to come from within,
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's why we're going to have to keep promoting AIS. It has to come from within.
No, I just, I think I've realized that things just don't need to be done as quickly and often, I guess, as I prefer them to be.
There you go.
And I think the best other solution is we're just going to get a cleaning person.
Oh, goodness. It's not always about the cleanliness.
Because it's predominantly my OCD.
No, it's predominantly your impulsivity, where you think you have a certain amount of time to get ready for something, and you get sidetracked, which blows that time window away. That's 90% of the time. When we're on a schedule to be somewhere or to do something, that is the reason why you miss the window.
Yeah.
You got to stop trying to be so impulsive. And I'll tell you, a lot of it is, or exactly, I gotta order this, or I meant to do this yesterday and I didn't. And
I know. Things come to my mind at the most unopportune times, I guess.
Yes. So the challenge with that is, and this can be for either spouse, when one person is not on time and they have something scheduled, it can cause an issue. Mm-hmm. Because then someone can look at it as, okay, well, you don't respect my time because every time we're supposed to be here at this point, one person is not ready. Fortunately, I just start saying, hey, listen, we need to go.
Well, and I know that, I hope that you know that it has nothing to do with the respect of your time.
No, it does. I know that. It's still frustrating as all. It's still frustrating. All I know that.
Yes. But yeah, I'm a work in progress.
We are all a work in progress. That time thing is something that it was an easy thing to actually touch on as we just come back from vacation and still have things that we need to get in order as we start preparing for what's to come in these next upcoming episodes. It was just something that, being over in Europe on vacation and seeing how our schedule played out the last couple of days, it made sense that we have a conversation about that difference in time. And I don't even want to say difference in time. When you have two people who have the same schedule or are scheduled to do the same things, but aren't on the same time wavelength, how that can be a challenge. Because if you recall, on the last day, I was done. I was done waiting for people.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. I get it. It's, people just start waiting around for other people, and that's not really, speaking of time, it is really not an efficient use of time unless you want to sit around and wait for that person. But I would say most of the situations, that's not the one.
Yeah.
Pick up a book, start reading, give yourself some a free time, I guess. But knowing that person's going to be on their own schedule, but
Yeah, and the thing, listen.
Well, and it was different because we're used to eating at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time. Like you get into your own routine. And there's some flexibility there, of course.
Thank you.
But at the same in the same breath, it's kind of like, we don't like to eat late. Like it's just different.
It's a challenge when two people or you're with a group of people who aren't on the same schedule when they all want to do the same thing and they want to do it together.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge comes in. Yeah. And I think that if it was a situation where you could do whatever it is you needed to do on your own, then it wouldn't be a challenge. But the fact that those individuals want to do what it is that you want to do and they want you to wait for them, that's when the issue becomes an actual issue. So now let me get into my realization of the week, because I think this is something that most people can relate to. I think far too often people put off things that they really wish they could do or they want to do for one reason or another. And there's always some excuse. I'll do it next time, or, in a couple of years we can do this. Oh, well, I really don't have time or the money to do that right now. And the challenge with that is, unfortunately, you're never promised tomorrow. Yeah. And a lot of times when you put off those things that you really want to do, you can end up in a situation where you don't get a chance to do those. So I realized that if there's something that you really want to do, make the time and plan to actually do it. Because again, you're not promised tomorrow. And if it's something that you really want to do, give yourself that opportunity to go out there and actually get it.
Well, and life is too short.
Exactly. Life is too short.
You got to do and enjoy your time while you have it.
That's right. And speaking of enjoying your time, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll talk to you next time.
That's it for this week's episode of the Lunch with Sandy podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback and comments on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Lunch with Sandy. And be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate and review us. Thanks again for listening to the Lunch with Sandy podcast.